monument in Spain, is one of those buildings that photography cannot prepare you for. The interior light, filtered through stained glass that turns the stone columns into a forest of color, produces a silence in visitors that the building appears to have been specifically designed to create. Barcelona rewards those who leave the Ramblas and go deeper, into the Gothic Quarter's medieval lanes, into the Modernista buildings of the Eixample, onto the Barceloneta waterfront as the city takes its evening. It is a city of complete confidence, and that confidence is completely justified.
Madrid became Spain's capital by royal decree in 1561. It has spent every year since proving it deserves the title on its own merits. A city built on the high Castilian plateau at over 600 meters, Madrid operates at an altitude and an energy that belongs specifically to it. The air is different here, drier, cleaner, more transparent. The light it produces is sharper than the coastal cities. The shadows it casts are more defined. Madrid is a city of art, of politics,
of the kind of cafe culture that measures conversations in hours rather than minutes. The Golden Triangle of art, the Prado, the Reina Sofia, the Thyssen-Bornemisza, contains one of the greatest concentrations of visual art on Earth. The Prado alone holds Velázquez, Goya, El Greco, and Hieronymus Bosch in quantities that require multiple visits to begin absorbing. Guernica, in the Reina Sofia, is one of the most powerful single rooms in any museum anywhere. At 11 at night on a Tuesday,
Madrid is still completely alive. The city does not apologize for its hours and never will. Seville is the city that invented the idea of Spain that the rest of the world carries in its imagination. The flamenco, the orange blossom, the April fair with its horses and colored lanterns and the particular sound of palmas filling the evening. The bullfighting tradition that provokes more debate than any other Spanish cultural practice.
At the Semana Santa processions that move through the streets with a solemnity so complete it stops traffic and conversation simultaneously. All of it is here. All of it is genuine. The Alcázar, a royal palace begun by the Moors in the 10th century and continuously expanded by successive Christian monarchs who loved it too much to replace it, is the architectural heart of the city. Its gardens, its tiled courtyards, its murajar interiors covered in geometric patterns of such complexity that the eye cannot find a resting point. This is one of the great buildings of Europe, and it remains a functioning royal residence. The Giralda Tower beside the cathedral climbs in a ramp rather than stairs, designed so the Moorish muezzin could ride his horse to the top to call prayers. History in Seville is not behind glass. It is load-bearing. Granada holds a grief that has lasted 500 years. In January 1492, the last Moorish Sultan Boabdil surrendered the keys of Granada to Ferdinand and Isabella, ending 7 centuries of Islamic presence in the Iberian Peninsula. He turned for a final look at the Alhambra on his way into exile and wept, and the spot is still called the Pass of the Moor's Sigh. Whether the story is true or embellished, the emotion it carries is real. You feel it standing in the Alhambra. The beauty of what ended here is written in every carved wall. The Alhambra is the reason the world comes to Granada, and the reason is proportional to reality. A palace complex of such extraordinary geometric beauty, every surface covered in carved plasterwork, every courtyard anchored by a pool that doubles the sky, that it makes every superlative applied to it feel accurate rather than excessive. Below the Alhambra, as the Albaicín neighborhood climbs the opposite hill in whitewashed lanes that have not substantially changed since the Moors built them. At sunset, from the Mirador de San Nicolás, the Alhambra across the valley turns the color of the earth it was built from. Nothing prepares you for that view, nothing needs to. Valencia invented paella, and it would like you to remember that every time you eat a version of it anywhere else. You have the original, but rice cooked in a wide flat pan over open flame with rabbit, chicken, green beans, and rosemary. The socarrat crust at the bottom, caramelized to the precise edge of burnt, bears only distant family resemblance to the seafood versions served across the rest of Spain and the world. In Valencia, they will tell you this directly and without apology. They are correct. At the City of Arts and Sciences, Santiago Calatrava's futurist complex rising from the old Turia riverbed is the visual argument for contemporary Valencia. Buildings that look like the skeleton of a whale, like the eye of a creature from the deep, like what architecture looks like when the architect stops asking permission from gravity. It is one of the most dramatic pieces of modern urban design in Europe. But the old city behind it, the cathedral, the central market with its Art Nouveau iron and tile, the Silk Exchange, whose Gothic hall is one of the finest secular medieval rooms in Spain, is Valencia's deeper argument. The city earns attention in multiple centuries simultaneously. Malaga is where the Costa del Sol begins, and where most people make the mistake of simply passing through it toward the beach towns further along the coast.
But this is Pablo Picasso's city, but he was born here in 1881 in a house on the Plaza de la Merced that still stands, and the Picasso Museum in the Old Palace of the Buenavista counts among the most important art museums in Spain. The collection of 233 works donated by his family gives the museum an intimacy that the larger Picasso collections in Paris and Barcelona cannot quite replicate.
And the old city between the cathedral and the Alcazaba fortress rewards unhurried walking. The Alcazaba, an 11th century Moorish fortress rising above the Roman theater below it, compresses 1,000 years of Malaga's history into a single hillside. The cathedral beside it, known locally as La Manquita, the one-armed lady, because one of its towers was never completed, watches the city from its incomplete state with the dignity of something that knows it is beautiful regardless. If Malaga is a real city with a real character, it deserves more than a transfer. Ibiza has been misrepresented by its own reputation for long enough that the truth about it has become the best-kept secret on the island. Yes, the clubs are real. The summer nightlife, the super clubs of San Antonio, the open-air terraces.
Yet the DJ culture that has made this island synonymous with electronic music globally is genuine and operates at a scale and quality that justifies its international reputation. If that is what you come for, it is here and it delivers. But Ibiza is also a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The old town of Dalt Vila, a walled, fortified city rising above the harbor, its cathedral crowning the summit, as its lanes of whitewashed houses climbing steeply within the 16th century walls, is one of the finest preserved historic towns in the Mediterranean. The northwest of the island, away from the resort infrastructure, is a landscape of pine forests, hidden coves, and agricultural villages that operate in complete indifference to the noise happening 20 kilometers away. Ibiza contains multitudes. The mistake is arriving with a fixed idea of which one is real. All of them are. Mallorca is the largest of the Balearic Islands and the most layered, a place that rewards visitors who move past the resort coastline and into the island's interior with the discovery of something that has very little to do with beach tourism and everything to do with what the Mediterranean actually is. The Tramontana mountain range along the northwest coast, a UNESCO World Heritage landscape of limestone peaks, get terraced olive groves and stone-built villages clinging to cliff edges above the sea, is where the island keeps its most extraordinary scenery. The village of Valdemosa, where Chopin spent a winter composing and Georges Sand spent a winter complaining about the weather, sits in this landscape with the composed beauty of somewhere that has been beautiful long enough to take it entirely for granted. Palma, the capital, it anchors the island with a Gothic cathedral, La Seu, whose interior was modified by Gaudí and whose position directly on the waterfront, rising above the city, gives it a presence that announces Mallorca from the sea as it has announced it for 7 centuries. The island earns every visit it receives, then earns a second one. San Sebastián is the most elegant small city in Spain, and the argument for that claim begins on the plate.
With more Michelin stars per capita than almost anywhere on Earth,
San Sebastian has built a culinary reputation that draws serious food travelers from every direction. But the democratic expression of that culture is not in the fine dining restaurants. It is in the pinchos bars of the Parte Vieja, the old town, where countertops are loaded each evening with small preparations of extraordinary skill and variety, where the correct approach is to stand, eat, drink a small glass of Chicoli white wine, move to the next bar, repeat. The physical setting is the second argument. La Concha Bay, a perfect horseshoe of beach enclosed by two headlands, the small island of Santa Clara sitting in the middle of it, the Belle Epoque promenade running the length of the bay, is one of the finest urban beaches in Europe. It is beautiful in a way that is almost unfair, given that the city also contains extraordinary food. San Sebastian is the city that has everything and holds it all in a space you can walk across in 20 minutes. That combination is essentially perfect. Toledo is the city that Spain built to prove it could contain everything simultaneously. For several centuries in the medieval period, Toledo was the place where Christian, Jewish, and Islamic cultures not only coexisted but collaborated. Scholars translating Arabic texts into Latin, Jewish physicians treating Christian nobility, mosques converted to churches that retained their Moorish architecture because it was too beautiful to remove. The term used to describe this period, la convivencia, the coexistence, carries a weight that the word alone cannot fully bear. The physical city, rising on a granite outcrop above a bend in the Tagus River, as its skyline of cathedral towers and castle ramparts unchanged in its essential outline for 500 years, is one of the great medieval urban landscapes of Europe. El Greco lived and worked here for most of his adult life, and the Toledo he painted in his extraordinary stormlit view of the city is still recognizable from the same vantage point today. The cathedral, the Alcazar, the synagogues of the Jewish quarter, the Mosque of Cristo de la Luz, 4 civilizations in one city, and still present, still readable. Toledo is Spain's most honest answer to its own complexity. Ten destinations, one country, and the truth that Spain has been trying to communicate to every visitor who arrives with a fixed idea of what it is. Spain is not one thing. It is 17 regions, dozens of languages, centuries of civilization, layered so densely that every city is simultaneously a Roman city, a Moorish city, a Christian city, and a modern European city, all walking in the same body. The food here is not a tourist attraction. It is a daily philosophical commitment to the idea that eating well with other people is one of the things a life is actually for. The architecture is not a backdrop. It is an argument about beauty made in stone and tile and iron that has been running for 1,000 years and is nowhere near finished. What the people are not a cultural performance. They are the inheritors of a tradition that takes pride, passion, and generosity seriously as values rather than adjectives. Go to Spain. Stay longer than you planned, eating later than feels reasonable. Walk into a bar that has no English menu. Say yes to the thing you cannot quite identify on the plate. This is Echo Nomad. Subscribe for more journeys. We will see you in the next destination.